Hear the siren? It's the plastic police. Plastic. We all use it, we all throw it away, we all recycle it, it's everywhere. What are you going to do about it? Well, me, I'm going to try and continue to use it as much as I possibly can. A couple weeks ago, I showed you how you can repair plastic things that you have by simply welding it back together with a soldering iron or a heat source. And then last week I showed you something a little more fun you can do by melting it down and creating things like this little toy car. This week I'm going to go a little bit further into that and show a bunch of other things you can do with plastic. Some of them you may know, some of them you may not know, you may know all of it, but hopefully you'll watch and enjoy anyways. If you put HDPE #2 plastic, milk jugs, laundry detergents, all that type of stuff, in an oven at 266 degrees, it's going to melt without causing any harmful fumes. Once you've got it sort of melted into this yucky, goopy consistency, you can then crush it and compress it into stock, into blocks and bricks, different sizes and shapes depending upon the size and shape of the box you press it. It forms a very hard, very durable, very cool looking plastic that you can then use your woodworking tools on to make stuff with. Now, is the footprint of doing this bigger than it is to actually just recycle it and send it through the recycling machinery and trucks and all that stuff, firing up this little toaster oven? I do not know. I am not doing this to necessarily say that, oh, if you melt all your plastic down into toy cars instead of recycling it, it's better for the earth. It's probably not. The idea is to rethink how we use materials and to inspire people to consider thinking about materials differently, and maybe someone can watch this video and it will trigger someone else's idea, and someone else's idea, and the hive mind will kick in and solve the problem, so we will be free of this burden of what to do with all this plastic. Or maybe it's just a lot of fun. I don't know. Watch and find out. Instead of using clamps to crush the plastic down, I made this simple press out of an old bottle jack and some scrap wood. I just made boxes that I put the plastic into and screwed them all together closed with a lid that would then get pressed across the top. On one of my boxes I put a little piece of wood in to create that groove that you can see there, and then I trimmed the plastic up when it came out and I made a smartphone stand. Just a little bit of sanding. I just made that groove wide enough to hold a smartphone with a case. That's a different one I made out of some different plastic. The one that I was just showing that I had videotape of me working, I actually cut into slices to create the tractor trailer looking toy car that you see there. Any old plastic bag like this works pretty good for cleaning off sandpaper that's clogged up with sawdust. That stuff's gonna stay, but gets the rest of it out. When I was a kid, I used to always save the bread ties and use them as guitar picks. I know they make those machines nowadays for cutting credit cards into guitar picks, but I don't have one. I do have a belt sander, however. Man, I couldn't do that as a kid. What else could we do? Guitar pick. Here's the thick plastic one. It actually deadens the sound up a little bit. Here's the bread pick, shaped now. Milk jug. Not bad, really thin, very thin. And then here's this plastic pretzel container. Those would definitely be too thin for most guys, but they're good for the guys that like the thin picks. This is still the best pick ever, man. The one I came up with as a 12-year-old kid. these bread tabs shaped. And then I was thinking about this one that's a little too thick for me. Make it a little thinner. Sometimes it gets dusty in my shop, and by sometimes I mean all the time. And by sometimes I mean rarely, I listen to CDs. And so after losing a couple of my thrift store CD players to dust damage, I started keeping a plastic bag. You can actually see all the dust on it right there. Started keeping a plastic bag on top to keep the dust out of the Clockworks. And I've had this CD player for well over a year now, and that bag is what saved it. And also, when I'm not using my camera, I do the same thing to keep it dust free. I of course save a lot of plastic containers from the products we buy that are still packed in plastic containers for use in the shop for storing paints and nuts and bolts and just about whatever I need to store. Now in my plastic press, that press that I made, I had created a template that had circles in it that I pressed this plastic into to sort of try and press it into these circular shapes that I'm now cleaning up, and it wasn't really worth the extra work of trying to get that stuff in. You're better off to just make a block and then use a hole saw to cut it out. But it was kind of cool. I thought they'd make nice knobs for you know, any kind of electronics projects you have or whatever. Very simple work, and you know, with a hole saw and a drill press or sander, you don't even need the lathe. And there you go. That's kind of what it looks like. Now sometimes guitar nuts are made of bone, and I'm a vegetarian, so of course I don't use that kind. Most of them then are made of different types of plastic materials, which is why I thought that this HDPE might work pretty well as a nut or a saddle for some of your guitar projects. Usually I use hardwoods like ebony, which is what I'm replacing here, and the ebony is definitely preferable, but I just wanted to show the potential that you could actually make these other types of guitar parts out of this HDPE. There you have it. I think I've shown that there are a lot of possibilities and potentials with this material, and I'm curious of what everybody else is going to make with it.